Let's talk about Matt Rhule as the next Nebraska head football coach. Remember how I started the coach video about Bill O'Brien? I said he was like oatmeal, kind of plain, still good for you, but kind of plain. Okay, Matt Rhule looks like an Ewok. I can't get past that. Go on the internet. I'm not going to edit it in here. You can find photos. You can search for Matt Rhule, and you can search for Ewoks, and you can look at the two together, and bam, they're related. I just wonder if Matt Rhule becomes the head coach in Nebraska if we're all going to have to wear smocks. Would you like that? I'm not sure. I'm John Johnston, CornNation. Please subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button so more people see my videos. And you know what? Thank you for your support so far. The first thing I thought about Matt Rhule was, does he really have any Big Ten experience? And I didn't know much about him other than he was the coach at Baylor and he was the coach at Temple before that. But, I went out and looked, and it turns out he actually kind of grew up in Happy Valley, and he played at Penn State under Paterno, Joe Paterno, that guy. He played as a walk-on. So, yeah, he has Big Ten experience. I guess maybe not as a coach right there, but he still knows what's going on in the Big Ten, and I do think that's important. He has a lot of experience. That's probably his biggest upside or his biggest pro, Where I think it gets interesting is, let's start in 2012 when he became the assistant offensive line coach with the New York Giants. So he starts out and he's got a lot of jobs before that, but he gets NFL experience. And then next year after that, in 2013, he becomes the Temple head coach, the head coach of the Temple Owls, someplace everybody wants to go. He coaches from 2013 to 2016 for Temple. He compiles a 28-23 record, which doesn't sound very good unless you consider the fact that, well, it's Temple. And secondly, he started out 2-10. So he started with a program that wasn't winning at all, and then he finished 10-3. And in his third year as Temple's head coach, he went 10-2 in the regular season, winning the American Athletics Conference's East Division, went to their conference inaugural game. Next season, went to the Owls' second consecutive championship game, where they won their first conference championship since 1967. That sounds like a guy that we could use in Nebraska. He's winning conference championships. So here's another little kind of interesting note. In 2015, the Temple Owls, coached by Matt Rhule, beat Penn State 27-10 for the first time since 1941. That had to make a lot of Penn State people happy with Matt Rhule. 2017, he goes to Baylor. And if you remember about that time, they were in scandal. And he replaced interim coach Jim Grobe. But 2017, again, the Baylor Bears are terrible. They're in bad shape. He finishes 1-11 overall and 1-8 in the Big 12. Next year, 2018, he's 7-6, which means he gets to a bowl game. That'd be nice, getting to a bowl game. Haven't seen that in a few years. God help us. 2019, he goes 11-3, 8-1 in the Big 12. And he wins the 2019, he wins the Big 12 Coach of the Year, and he wins the AP Big 12 Coach of the Year. So, good seasons or good time there at Baylor. And then he goes to the Carolina Panthers. And over 2020 to 2022, he compiles an 11-27 record. And this is where I'm going to get into some the biggest con I see. First of all, he gets a massive contract, right? He gets, 7 years, $70 million, which it's a lot of money. And he's fired. He just got fired a little while ago, and he's owed estimates, some say $40 million to be paid out over the next few years. Keep in mind, he didn't get that right away. It's going to be paid like he had a contract, right? And he didn't fulfill all of it, so he's going to be paid the rest of that contract over the next few years. That's important. In the time he was at the Carolina Panthers, he went through 3 offensive coordinators, got rid of Cam Newton, gave Teddy Bridgewater $63 million, Sam Darnold $18 million, re-signed Cam Newton before letting him go again, and then traded for Baker Mayfield. All of that amounted to 11 wins, weird quotes about how football works in a fan base that has completely lost faith and interest in the Panthers. Took that from an article. So that's, I guess, the pro. I don't want to hold pro experience against the college coach, because they're very different things. At the same time, you have to be able to evaluate rosters, know what your roster is doing, and evaluate talent properly. That just sounds icky. It does. It sounds like, you know what it does? I mean, if we're going to hire this guy as our next head coach, we're all going to convince him. We're all going to go, oh, he had shortcomings, but he's overcome those. And we're all going to convince ourselves of great things about this guy. So what would you say about that? Well, hopefully he wouldn't do it again. That's probably the biggest thing you'd say about that. He'd be smarter with his roster management. The pro out of the pro experience, or the positive out of the pro experience is we have nil, and you're going to deal with, I almost said kids with contracts, but very young men with contracts. And he's already dealt with the NFL guys with contracts. So that, I think, is a positive that he's had that experience. And again, we go back to the experience. I mean, I mentioned he's been all over the place. Okay, 1998, Penn State, volunteer assistant. Albright, small college, linebackers coach, defensive side. Buffalo, defensive line coach. UCLA, defensive line coach. Western Carolina. In 3 years, he goes special teams and linebackers coach, associate head coach, special teams and linebackers coach. And in 2005, at Western Carolina, he's the associate head coach, the running game coordinator, the special teams and linebackers coach. I'm not going to look that up because I don't care. But I mean, he has a lot of experience on a lot of different positions. And there's the Ewok thing. But if you remember about the Ewoks, they weren't particularly powerful about themselves. Remember what I said about oatmeal in the Bill O'Brien video? Oatmeal is, it's kind of plain, but it matters what you put with it, right? I have mine sometimes with cinnamon or honey or brown sugar or wild blueberries with my oatmeal, and it makes it that much better. Well, the Ewoks were tiny little cute things so the Star Wars franchise could sell toys. And they aligned themselves with the rebels and helped blow up the Death Star. And, they beat the Empire. So, it's a matter of not just Matt Rhule. Maybe he's a good coach. I'm sure if he gets hired by Nebraska, that I will do everything to convince myself that he's going to be the next greatest winner. He does have, like I mentioned, the history of taking programs that are, in the shitter and turning them around and winning championships with them. So I think that's something Nebraska could get behind. It'd certainly be the sales point for him if you're going to look at media stories, if or when he's hired. So Matt Rhule, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. I mean, you can join in on, you can come back and say, no, he doesn't look like an Ewok at all, and I like smocks, and that'd be perfectly fine with me. But let me know what your thoughts are. But wait, there's more. I forgot to tell you about the contract thing. Okay, remember I said he has a huge buyout from the NFL, and it's going to be paid over years? Okay, if he takes a college job, then part of the NFL owner's liability of that contract gets reduced. In other words, Nebraska could, let's say we're going to pay him $7 million a year. Well, that's $7 million a year the NFL guys don't have to pay you. But if Matt Rhule looked at us and said, you know what, I'll take $5 million a year because these other guys are already going to have to pay me, so I can reduce my salary for you, but you're going to make up for it by giving me a lot more money for assistance. And that is probably a huge a positive for Matt Rhule. Also, the con that goes with that is the guy understands money a lot, and he's already got a lot of buyout money coming in, and whenever you get that kind of stuff going on, you're like, well, how can I get more? So I think it gives perhaps Nebraska an advantage in lowering his cost a little, which is always good, and maybe reducing his buyout a little, and saving that money to buy higher really, really good assistant coaches, which I think is very important, especially when you look at the Ewok add-on alliances kind of thing going on there. I think I'd look good in a smock, maybe. I don't know. Y'all take care. Go Big Red.